Hello, everyone, and welcome to Horror Night Oasis, a radio show where we discuss all the latest movies and news from the world of horror. Joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Ian. Ian, are you there?
Slightly.
Slightly. As I mentioned before, and I'll say it again, happy belated Father's Day.
Well, thank you, thank you.
And we are here to continue on our Pride or Die marathon, where we are reviewing and discussing films in the LGBTQ spectrum. And we have another one lined up tonight. And honestly, there's no reason not to just kick it off and get into it. Our film this week is Ladybug from 2024. And Ladybug follows Grayson. He's not well known, but he's a painter, an artist, and he sells his paintings through a friend in an art gallery or exhibit art gallery. And he is recently going through a bad breakup with his ex-boyfriend, and he wants to get away. And so what he decides to do is there is a family, I guess a family cabin in a certain area, and he decides to go and basically clean it up and renovate, and just to get away from people and just to free his mind, clear his head, and also do some paintings while he's there, and just to liberate himself. And while he is cleaning up the place, it is kind of again run down, and he wants to basically just make it newer, renovate it, as I mentioned. And he has a number, this little sheet of paper with a bunch of phone numbers on it. And so he calls the top number to get a handyman there to help because he's fixing the toilet, and the toilet won't flush, and it's a whole mess in there basically. And that is when we're introduced to Sawyer. And Sawyer again just randomly shows up, no knocking or anything, and it kind of throws Grayson. It scares. I wouldn't say it scares him, but just like it spooks him a little. Like, hey, I didn't know. Next time, give me a text or knock on the door or something. But eventually, they start talking and conversing and enjoying each other's company and just getting better acquainted, because there's this sort of connection there. And Sawyer is interested in Grayson's paintings, and he says, "Why don't you paint me sometime? And I'll be your muse." And Grayson politely agrees. And a little bit later on in the film, there's the paint. Grayson paints Sawyer, and there's sort of a little underlying story happening, unfolding, where Grayson is in the house, but there's like something off about the house. He feels like he's being watched. Every now and then he looks out the window and he sees someone standing across the road by a tree, just staring at the house. And every now and then he just has this uneasy feeling that like something's a little off. He kind of gets that with Sawyer as well, because again, as I mentioned, he doesn't knock, he doesn't call or text, and he just randomly shows up at the house, like he's in the house. He's upstairs, downstairs, coming out of the bathroom, and this again, nothing really crazy, but it's sort of like, hey, something's a little off here. And as the film progresses, every now and then Wendy, his I wouldn't say publisher, but the one that runs the exhibit, and they're having conversations, and she's sort of interested in Sawyer. And a little bit later on in the film, she's like talking to Grayson's ex, and that kind of puts him off of talking to Wendy for a little bit. And at the same time, he's doing all these paintings, because when he's sleeping at night, he's sort of not sleepwalking, but he's sleep painting, where he's just painting up a house, and the picture flies and hits the wall. And that's another thing that he talks with Sawyer about. Like, yeah, I just did that in my sleep. I don't remember how. And then later on, there's like he can't remember like paintings that like, did you finish the painting for me? And Sawyer's like, no, like, you seem the way I'm not able to do that. I don't have the talent that you do. And again, just like all these little tiny hints and details as the film progresses with Grayson and Sawyer until it ultimately unfolds that there's a certain thing that's happening and well that has happened and there's more to Sawyer and the house and the property than Grayson knows. And I think that's a good place to end it because I don't want to get too heavy on the spoilers. And overall, I thought this. I enjoyed the premise of this one. I enjoyed the ride. I liked the idea. Again, it's not the most original idea, but I'll get into that a little bit later. Um, but I like the setup and like how it keeps you sort of interested in where the story is progressing. The little bit of the mystery as it's unfolding, it's not giving everything away. It's a very slow burn. Ultimately, I don't know if that paid off in the end. I mean, it's here or there. Um, but I like the build up and I like the beginning. I like the camaraderie between Sawyer and Grayson and sort of the budding love interest that they're having. Um, just like just two random people just starting to form bonding and forming a relationship. Um, but it doesn't get too. It's one of those where the film, it is a queer film because Grayson, is a queer individual. Um, and so it's like it's not one of those where it's like heavy-handed, it's beating you over the head. Like honestly, you wouldn't even, if you looked at it like you can just look at it, it's like a normal film. Like it doesn't bombard you or hit you over the head with like its intentions. Like it feels like a normal film, which honestly it should be, given everything. But it's like again, it has the gay tendencies in there as the film goes on. But it's not in your face as a lot of films are. So I like that aspect of the film. It's like very slow burn, just very meticulous about everything, just like little pinpoints, little hints here and there, just keeping it. It's fairly predictable in where it's leading. I will say that much. Like honestly, I mean, you can read the description and pretty much it gives a lot away. But like again, going in there, like they kind of again, like I said, they give good points away in the description of the film, which kind of sucks when you're reading it and just like, well, they could have not given that away, but it is what it is. And so, like, I like the relationship. It is, like I said, it's a very slow burn. It's one of those where if you don't have the patience for it, you're not probably going to really get into the story that much. And I do think it kind of, I wouldn't say loses focus, but it kind of loses steam towards the last act. And that's when like everything starts happening. And that is kind of a detriment to it. Whereas like it could have been like this, again, I was kind of expecting more of like this weird, kind of expected a little bit body horror based off the poster.
Yeah.
But it was more supernatural tone to it. Again, I didn't mind that. Just again, based off the poster and the everything, I expect a little bit. I mean, it is sort of a little body horror, but it's not full blown. I mean, it's like the very bare minimum of body horror in a sense, but not like full on transformations or anything. It's more of a metamorphosis. But again, I dug the story. I liked the character of Grayson for the majority of the film. Sawyer was an interesting character, and the backstory pertaining to him. I liked everything. Pretty much I enjoyed. It was a fine watch. I didn't really mind it all too much, and the story was again very, like I said, it's a slow builder, and it just stays very slow throughout. So like I said before, if you don't have the time and effort to see the film progress as they intend, you're probably not going to get too much out of it. And again, the ending can be hit or miss, as I mentioned. There, I mean, I was like hoping for like this big grand finale, and it's still it kind of goes there, but it's not exactly as grandiose as you hope, and as crazy. I wouldn't say crazy. It wasn't exactly a crazy type of film, but it just didn't exactly, it went as planned. I would say it didn't really step out of the boundaries that it set in notion, for itself, in motion for itself. Um, everything pretty much goes exactly as planned. Even the finale kind of predictable, but for what it was perfectly fine. Um, again, I liked again the the story was solid. Even though again it kind of brought me back to another film called Soulmate from 2013, and that one had a lady that was going through a divorce, and she wanted to get away, and she goes to this townhouse on this coastal property, and then there's another individual apparition that's in the house, and things go on from there, and they start forming a relationship. That one's on Tubi as well. So it's like if you wanted a double feature, Ladybug, Soulmate. But Ian, I'll give you your thoughts, and then we'll go back and forth.
Yeah, well, I agree with what you were saying. Like, this movie was actually like pretty engaging. I do feel like while it was fairly predictable, it was kind of a weird way. And like, I don't know, I kind of felt like it ended a little weird. But I mean, it was a fine watch. I really loved like um was Sawyer's and my mom. I'm bad with
Grayson.
names. Grayson, yes, which I don't understand because I was trying to tell myself Dick Grayson. Uh, anyway, but yeah, no, like that was fine. I honestly thought this movie was going to go a lot more different because one, yes, the the poster makes it look like it's going to be body horror or something, and like the description was like made it sound like it was going to be more like hardcore, like slasher, like homophobic guy slasher, um, which didn't really get a whole lot of anything like that. And I was kind of, had my expectations for that. But the description does not necessarily match the movie, in my opinion, which is kind of misleading. But I mean, it's a pretty solid watch. I was like, okay, I'm actually invested in this story. I thought the characters were fairly well written. Um, I felt like uh, Grayson was a little bit of a pushover. Uh, like to a weird degree, almost, but I'm also chalking it up to, you know, everything else that was going on around that time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's really good watch. Like, this is actually like pretty up there for what we've watched so far, and I hope that it only gets better from here. This is I was actually kind of surprised, especially once I saw, like for a movie being on Tubi. Like but the like you said though, like the the main character being gay was the main story of it, but it was done in such a nice way
Yeah, it
where
was
it's
like respectfully done.
yeah, like it wasn't trying to like I'm gay, like, and I don't have a problem with that, like at all. A lot of times, it's just it's just this is who he is. This is a major part of the story, and it wasn't too overhanded. There was no real like bad
Yeah, no one
stereotype.
questioned it. Everyone was just accepting of it. Like when he goes to the
Yeah,
the store, like no one questions anything. No one looks at him differently. He's just an average person. And again, that's good for this type of movie where it's just it works. It's like as you said, it's not heavy-handed. It's not going out there and you know being loud. It's just like I'm just a normal person. You know,
yeah,
and that's what it
and
should be. And like again, I like that aspect of it, like you said, and I liked again sort of like the Sawyer and like how he's sort of like being like not I wouldn't say shy. I mean he's just being just like intriguing, and just like catching Grayson's eye, and then eventually where that leads, it's just kind of a you should have watched your back a little bit. Um,
yeah,
and again, like again the eventual turnaround of where the film eventually leads. Again, I liked that aspect of it too. It was very intriguing for the film it is, even though again it's kind of familiar in instances that I've seen before. But again, I'm not. Again, we've seen a lot of stuff that's very similar, that's sometimes carbon copies of other films. So I'm giving this one sort of a pass on that one because like the story being told and presented is really well done. Even though
yeah,
it is
no,
slow, even though it is a little slow, but it's like I said, it's a very slow burn.
yeah, I absolutely was enamored by this movie because I was like, you know, I didn't know what to expect. I I was just worried that there was going to be a lot of like over the top like cliches or like poorly done stereotypes, but it was a really like solid film. It knew what it wanted to be. I felt like they succeeded. I do feel like there was a couple of things that I just was like, I'm not a big fan of where they went with this, and but like it was
Yeah, especially
fun.
like when they introduce Sawyer's mother, like they introduce his mother coming around, snooping around the
Yeah,
cabin, and there's like stuff with that later on that plays out. There's just like again a lot of that stuff in general with what happens to like the mother and some other people. Like I understand, I get what's going on, but it's like it just doesn't come off as it should on being presented on as the film progresses. Like it could have been toned a little bit better in that regard because it's just
yeah,
like okay now what's going I wouldn't say like what's going on. I mean I'm just saying like now who's this character? I kind of get the idea. There's a certain figure that's in the film that comes around and like that's the whole reason that everyone's in the predicament that they're in and what eventually happens. I mean, the build up to that comeuppance of that character. I wouldn't say comeuppance, but the retribution portion. And so there's a lot of interesting dynamics that's happening between Sawyer and Grayson and the other stuff that goes along in that little regard there. So it's very, like I said, it's a very intriguing watch to see how the film actually pans out. It's sort of, like I said, it's very familiar, but they managed to make it their own as the film progresses, and just again,
Yeah.
like the endings kind of up and down, but I didn't mind it because, like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You can see where it's going in that regard. Like, oh, there's going to be something there, and it does. But again, for what it was solid. It's like the build up, the mystery, the intrigue, the stalking aspect of, because there's a lot of good like camera work. There's like the one scene where, like, again, like the person standing across the road by the tree and he's just standing there, and then there's another moment later on in the film when with Sawyer, and I believe that I think that includes his mother, when his mother comes in the house looking for him, and like there's a shot with like him above the stairs, and it's just like a very small little portion of the wall you can see him behind, and his mother down in the uh, bottom floor of the house. So there's like some good imagery, and then there's the other imagery at the beginning of the movie where Grayson's going through the house, and like there's that image, like you can't miss it, and like that's a good, well planned out shot. So there's some great imagery in the film um, that I have to give him credit for.
Yeah. No, that was another thing I wanted to bring up was the cinematography and everything was just absolutely. I loved it. I thought it was pretty good. There was a couple of filter effects I was just like, nah. But honestly, it was just a really well done film, and I'm really was really impressed by it. And I really feel like this was like such a good like little hidden gem on Tubi that I probably wouldn't have watched outside of the show because,
Yeah, I had this on my watch list for a while, and then like I was gonna watch it, like, oh, wait a second, we can save it for the Pride Marathon, and that's what I did. So I held off on it, and I'm kind of glad. Again, kind of glad I did so, because it made for a solid little watch, and enough to really get into it and discuss it a little bit further than just watching it on a off day and
yeah.
enjoying it. Of course, I probably brought it up something like, hey, people need to check this out, but now we got more in depth. Like, hey, might be worth a watch to go check out, because it is probably like you said, a good hidden gem, and we don't find those that often. Every now and then. Like I said, if you can get past, again, it is again a little slow, but if you can deal with that, I think you're in for a decent watch. Again, it's nothing groundbreaking, but they managed to make with it what they will and make it their own in a sense. And again, the last act can be a little, like I said before, hit or miss, because that's where it sort of goes. I wouldn't say off the rails, but it's just like there's a lot of ups and downs that last act.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, but then, again, it's just like, again, a weird sort of resolution to everything, but it makes sense to the story. So it's a, again, it's here or there. It's just one of those things where, like, man, that ending's a little rocky, but it's not too rocky. It's bumpy, but it's enjoy. It's not a rough bumpy. It's like one of those roller coasters. Like, it has some bumps and turns. It's like a little rough, but it's still enjoyable. You still get some entertainment out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, again, from where it begins to all the characters and like the eventual reveal of everything, and what exactly is the plan that's happening between certain individuals as the film progresses. I like that. And again, I don't really want to give too much away, but there's that certain character and his reveal, and what he's done at the house. I mean, they kind of open the film with it, but you get more with it as the film progresses and to the ultimate, retribution scene. Um, but yeah, like there's some good, the imagery of, like, again, the poster that comes into play. Um, that was a solid little, well rounded scene. just what happens thereafter, and then Wendy comes back into play. It's like the sort of the second main character as the conclusion of the film. But yeah, like because she sold one of the paintings that Grayson made, and she was wanting to have an open house as the film towards the end of the film, getting people buyers involved um, for the painting. So there's like a lot of stuff that her character does off camera. But like again, she comes in later at the very towards the end of the film. But yeah, I like the reveal of everything. I like the setup, the premise. Again, not the most original premise, but I dig it for what it was. And again, I like the how they handle the gay aspect and the queer tones to it, where it's not too in your face. And I think they just did well with it. The love story, I mean, it wasn't, it was very budding, very just like beginning feels basically between Grayson and Sawyer, Sawyer, and sort of everything that happens with them. I enjoyed, and again, Ian said the cinematography is good, and scenes, well thought out scenes, and again, I just thought it was, again, as Ian said, pretty solid little watch, and I do recommend checking it out if you can. It is a little lengthy, but it is a very slow burn, as I've mentioned numerous times before. But I have to preface that because if I don't, you just have to be in it and you're like, man, this is slow. But it's like I thought, again, it was slow, but it was enough keeping you interested and entertained, and as the film progressed. So it's like they always threw something else in there, to keep it going, so it
Yeah.
didn't lose your interest.
Yeah, we lost Havoc. Let's see if he comes back soon. We're both experiencing a lot of thunderstorms and everything, and probably lost internet. So let's see if he comes back. No, I'm gonna give him like a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to call it a show. So, but yeah, that'll honestly, I think there's not really much left to discuss with the film. Um, so, uh, yeah, Havoc just said his internet is out, so I'm gonna hold out for just a tiny bit longer, and we'll see what happens. You gotta love this. But yeah, I mean, I'd say check this movie out. It is on Tubi. Tubi is free, so you don't have any excuse to not watch this movie. And uh, See if he comes back. But if you all do check this movie out, just let us know your thoughts and feelings about this film, because this was pretty solid film. There he is. He's back.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Weather. Yeah.
Yeah.
But did you get your final thoughts out, Ian?
Yeah. I don't think there's really a whole lot left.
No. Well, now that I'm back, I guess I can end it. So that's going to do it for our review of Ladybug. If you want, go ahead and check it out on Tubi and come back and give us your opinions of the film. We always love to hear from you. Marathon next week, I believe that's the conclusion.
Yeah.
And then we'll be into our Independence Horror Marathon for July, and there is some interesting titles that I have for that marathon. Looking forward to it. Doing something a little special this year for the Independence Marathon. So hopefully everyone's going to be interested in the film choices that we have planned for that marathon. With that being said, we will finish our Pride or Die Marathon next week. As always, Ian, it's been great talking with you and discussing these films. You keep safe, and I appreciate everyone for listening, and we will see you next time here on Horror Not Oasis.
Good night, everyone.